Thank you, Susanna. The beautiful thing about presenting after Susanna is she said most of the things that I have to say as the introduction, but I will go through it again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. And as you look at the Zoom links from around the world, so a warm digital welcome to you from wherever you are, just to this, the third fireside chat entitled Trading Beyond Tariffs. My name is Nicholas Jeffrey, and as Susanna said, I'm the founding partner of Impresario and the CEO of our host for today's event, HBBA Global. So over the past 100 days, since the US administration has changed with President Trump at the helm, we've seen global markets step cautiously into a new economic rhythm, one shaped by calibration rather than the original strategy of disruption. The press has named the US policy taco. Trump always chickens out. It's derogatory, yes, but the roller coaster of uncertainty is actually bigger than the issue of the tariff themselves. If he'd just gone along and said, I'm charging everybody another 10%, you'd have probably had a less disruptive environment. But the fact that it's gone from 151% to 51% to 10% to back up to 40 means that business leaders like ourselves just cannot plan. And it's actually hurting Americans as much as it's hurting their trade competitors. So in many ways, the first quarter of 2025 and the first 100 days of the US administration has been about navigating a new world order, no longer defined solely by tariffs and trade barriers, but defined by digital frameworks, by new strategic alliances, and the urgent pivot that we've seen towards smarter, more resilient economies, a bit like the Gulf states. For us trade professionals, this moment is less about defending the old rules and more about redefining the playing field. We're seeing bilateral and multilateral agreements spring up all over the place, expanding beyond the traditional scope. We now see people integrating climate frameworks, AI governance, and wow, there's a really big topic, and digital identity and urban infrastructure and security, and trying to mash them all up into what is the foreign trade policy. In the EU, green trade still remains the driving force. I'm struggling to work out how powerful that is, but Brussels has really doubled down on the carbon border adjustment mechanism, whatever that means, which is beginning to shape the export behavior well beyond Europe. In North America, we're seeing a renewed emphasis on energy security and digital trade corridors, especially between Canada and the US, and there is still a relationship, but also between Canada and its various provinces. And we're seeing a renewed emerging partners for Canada in the Indo-Pacific region. In Asia, digital trade-free zones are setting the pace for the next generation of commerce. The physical impact from AI agents and LLMs are no longer a media scare story. We're seeing companies trimming entry intakes and middle management is being scourged, and it's happening globally across these service industries. So whilst we're looking at trading beyond tariffs and the impact of the US, we're also looking at the impact of the AI happening at exactly the same time. And these will have an impact in this term of 3 to 4 years. Across this, I see noticeable trend emerging. In the last 30 days, I've seen a shift from friction-based trade policy, tariffs, quotas, and hard lines, to a system of shared value and digital interoperability. My question is, does it include the US or not? This is the third fireside chat entitled Trading Beyond Tariffs. And it's an invitation for us to explore where trade is heading and when the traditional levers are no longer defining the full picture. As Susanna said, we're joined by three remarkable speakers. Judith, as Susanna said, is the Investment and Trade Attaché at the Embassy of Hungary in London. beautiful building and spent some glorious evenings and afternoon there. Thank you. And she brings a deep European and US perspective on innovation-driven diplomacy and the shifting role of Central Europe across border trade and investment. And Hungary is doing spectacularly well at foreign direct investment, especially its percentage of Chinese investment into Europe. And hopefully she'll help us to understand how and, more importantly, why. Michael, and thank you very much for joining us. I know it's very early in the morning in LA, Consular and Senior Trade Commissioner at the Consulate General of Canada in Los Angeles. And Michael will hopefully offer us an insight into Canada's strategic positioning in the Pacific Rim and how North American partnerships are evolving around tech, clean energy, and digital infrastructure. Paul Doherty, president of CEO. Paul and I go back 10, 15 years. We've known each other a long time, and he's the CEO of the Digit Group. Paul is not only an award-winning architect and the founder or founding father of building information, but he's got a favored position within the White House in the US, having been invited on several trade missions with President Obama and President Trump. And hopefully he'll be able to share with us the perspective on what's happening at home in the land of the free and the home of the brave. So together we'll examine how governments, cities, companies are now trading intelligence, infrastructure, and building new corridors of trust and exploring how the new export challenges and the new export corridors are building up. And perhaps more critically, we'll look at how diplomacy and design can co-author trade strategies, and trade strategies that are more agile, more digital, and more sustainable, and in fact, more human.